online. All right, today we are finishing 4-1. Last class we learned to solve by graphing. Today we're going to learn to solve by substitution. So there's 4 steps we're going to be doing. The first step is to solve one equation for either x or y, and I'll be showing you guys how to look for the easiest variable to solve for. Step 2, you substitute that from step 1 into the other equation. So if you use equation 1 for step 1, you use equation 2 for step 2. Step 3 is solve for that one variable, and step 4, substitute it back into the original to get the other variable. So if you guys remember last class, we learned that systems are 2 or more lines, and we said that the point where they intersect is the solution. We said that in business, that's called the break-even point. So we said our goal is to find if the lines intersect, and if so, what that point of intersection is. We're going to be doing that today, but I want to remind you guys from last class, there's 3 possibilities. Either they intersect in one point, they're parallel and they never intersect, so they have no solution, or it ends up being the same exact line, and that means that every point on the line is a solution. Well, last class it was easy to tell because you saw if you had 2 lines and they intersected, that point of intersection was the solution. We had a couple that were parallel and had no solution, and we had one that if we had graphed it, we would have seen that it was the same exact line. So today we're going to be doing it algebraically, so I want to remind you there's 3 possibilities. The first possibility is that you get a point as your answer. The second possibility is you have something like this, -3 equals 2. Is that true? No, that's not true. So if your variables all cancel out and you're left with something not true, what do you think that means about the solution?
No solution.
No solution, right? And the final possibility, if your variables cancel out and you have something like 6 equals 6, is that true?
Yes.
What do you think that means about that type of...
It is solution.
Right, all real numbers, right, are solutions. So again, there's still 3 possibilities. We're going to be seeing that today. There's 3 possibilities. That's a point. So we'll be seeing where we solve and we get a value for x and a value for y. And we rewrite that as a point, an x and a y. If we look at number 7, we did 1 through 6 last class. We look at number 7. And I notice step 1 says solve one equation for x or y. But if you look at both of these equations, and I'm going to number them 1 and 2. Notice, yes.
Okay, it's x minus 9 equals -7, x minus 1.
Great job. So you notice that they were both already solved for y. Step 1 was done. Step 2, Devin just substituted in the x minus 9 for y.
Okay. Add 7x.
Good. Add 7x.
And then you add 9.
That's nice, right?
X equals 8. Or x equals 1.
Right. X.
The point that I got was x. It was 1, -8.
1, -8. All right. And how did you get that second number?
I did y equals 1 minus 9.
Good. So, and I love how you just walked me through all of those steps. Step 1 was done for us already. Both equations were solved already for one of the variables. So in step 2, Devin set them both equal to each other. Because they're both equal to y, you can set them equal to each other. Then he moved the 7x to be over with the other x, and he added 9 to the other side. He got 8x equals 8, and to get x by itself, he divided by 8 and got x is 1. Final step, he substituted 1 in for x back in equation 2, and got that y equals -8. So what that means is there's one solution. The point of intersection is the point 1, -8. All right, we're going to do those steps all over again for number 8. Step 1, solve one equation for x or y. So let me ask you guys, is one of the equations already solved for one of the variables?
Yes.
Yes, so step 1 is already done for us again. If you look at equation 1, y is already by itself. So step 1 is done for us. Step 2 says substitute the resulting equation from step 1 into the other equation for that variable. So we take what y equals, which is 5x plus 30, and we plug it in for the other y. So I'm going to stick it in right here where this y is. So it's 7x plus 3. Again, we're replacing y with -5x plus 30.
Why'd you do 1 minus 9 for number 7?
Because we found out that x was 1. So we replaced x with 1
Okay.
and got that y is -8. So since we had already solved for x, then we plug it back in to find out what y equals at that point. Good question. All right, this is why on Wednesday we went over some basic things we've already learned, basic solving. What do we do to get rid of our parentheses here? Distribute, thank you. So we multiply the 3 by the -5 and the 3 by 30. I'm still seeing some of you guys forget to distribute the number outside by the second number. You have to distribute it into everything. Yes.
I think I have the final answer.
Okay.
So it would be, next you would do 7x minus 15x plus 90 equals 42. Then you combine the x's, you get -8x. And then you subtract 90 from both sides. And then I had -8x equals -48. And then I divided by -8, I got 6. So that's x equals 6. And then for y, I got -30 plus 30 equals 0. So for y, I got 0.
Okay, so you substituted 6 in for x, and you said you got -30 plus 30 and got 0. Great job. So our final solution, the x value is 6, the y value is 0. So remember, all of your solutions are going to be x and y values. They're going to be written as a point. Yes?
Wait, how do you know when to put it like equal to and like reading? Oh wait, I get it.
You saw it?
Yeah.
At first, when you're first seeing this, it takes a little time to understand. Once you understand what's being done, though, I think it's pretty easy. So you solve for one of the variables. Once one of the variables solved for, plug that into the other equation, solve. And what happens is when you plug it into the other equation, you go from having 2 variables to having 1 separate variable. So we went from having both an x and a y here on equation 2 to just having x's. And because now we just have x, we were able to find out what x equals. And that's the point. If you can get it down to 1 variable and solve for that variable, then you can plug that number back in and get what the other variable equals. All right. If this thing will move for me. Okay, looking at number 9. You know what? I'm going to have you guys do 9 in a minute. We're going to skip over to 10. So you guys are going to do 9 for some practice in a minute. We're going to do 10. Yeah, we'll do 10 first. Yes. All right. Which variable in which equation looks easiest to solve for? The one, yeah, equation one, and which variable, x or y? X, right? It's just 1x, so that looks like the easiest. So first start, just take a look at both of your equations and see which one looks easiest to solve for. So we know that x is easiest to solve for. I can get it by itself by adding 7y to both sides. And we get, for equation 1, that x equals 53 plus 7y.
Wait, so why don't you put it in y equals mx plus b? You just don't do that.
No, because here you're not trying to graph it. You would do that if you were graphing. Here we're trying to solve for x and y.
Okay.
So whichever variable is easiest to get by itself, you get that variable by itself. So now we're trying to find what x and y equals. All right, we used equation 1, so we're going to go back to equation 2, and we're going to replace our x with 53 plus 7y. So again, go to the second equation, and instead of having negative 4x, I'm going to replace x with 53 plus 7y. So I'm going to substitute it right in place of x. How do I get rid of parentheses?
You
Distribute, good. Well, negative 4 times 50 is negative 200, and 4 times 3 is 12, so negative 212. Negative 4 times 7 is a negative 28y. Then bring everything else down. Minus 5y equals 19. Do we have any like terms? Yes. Again, guys, be very careful with your signs. They're both negative, so you're going to add and keep the negative sign. 28 and 5 is 33, but keep the negative. How do we get our y by itself? Close. Right.
No, add the 212.
Right, good. Add the 212. Move it over. It's 231 equals negative 33y. Divide both sides by negative 33. Let's see. Times 7, is that negative 7?
Yes.
All right, so we know y. And the easiest place to find your other variable, remember the beginning where we got that first variable by itself?
Yes.
That's the easiest place to go back and solve for your other variables. So we
And
take,
plug into y.
right, we take y equals negative 7 and we plug it right back in that blank spot. So we have x equals 53 plus 7 times negative 7. So again, we replaced y with negative 7, and then we go ahead and finish solving for x. 7 times negative 7 is a negative 49, and 53 minus 49 is 4. So their point of intersection is the point 4 and negative 7.
Can you start with the second one, like in number 9? Can you start with
Yes.
finding y?
Yeah, and that's the easiest one to solve for, so yes, absolutely. Always look for whichever one looks easier. All right, I want to skip down to 12 because this one is the most difficult problem on the paper. I want to do this with you guys. We're going to, again, number these 1 and 2. Now I look at these numbers, we have a 5x, a 7y, a 4x, and a negative 3y. None of them look easy to solve for. We're going to deal with some fractions, and I'll show you guys how to get rid of the fractions. So for me, I would just since the second equation has space under it, I would go ahead and add the 3. I would solve for the x. We do that by adding 3y to both sides. I'm going to highlight the x too so we can see what we're solving for. We get 4x equals -5 plus 3y. And the last step for solving for that x, because those are being multiplied, we divide everything by 4. So our x equals -5/4 plus 3/4y. All right, now that we've gotten step 1 done, we used the second equation, so we're going to go back to the first equation, and we're going to replace the x with -5/4 plus 3/4y. So again, we replace that x in the first equation with -5/4 plus 3/4y. So again, guys, notice I just rewrote the first equation, but in place of x, I put what x equals. So I substituted it right in place of x. Now don't lose me here. Yes, I know we're dealing with fractions. We're going to get rid of it in just a minute, I promise. So I made 5 into a fraction by putting it over 1. And when I distribute out, I'm going to multiply numerator to numerator, denominator to denominator. 5 times 5.
-5.
25, right? Oh, -5, thank you. And 1 times 4 is 4. If we do the next one, we have +5 times +3, which is a +15y. And 1 times 4 is 4. Then I bring everything else down. At this point, you could give them a common denominator, but I don't like to work with fractions if I don't have to. So what's an easy way to get rid of the 4?
Multiply the 4 times all the things. Everything.
Right, multiply the 4 times all the things. I like that. Don't forget there's 4 separate things we have to multiply by 4 times. And some of you guys are still missing this. When we multiply by 4 and there's a 4 on the top and a 4 on the bottom, yeah, they just cancel out. Some of you guys are writing that as -100. You're crossing out the 4 but then still multiplying. Remember, once you cross them out, it's gone and you're left with just the -25. Likewise, these 4's cancel each other out, leaving us with a +15y. 4 times 7 is 28y, and 4 times 17, that would be 34, 68, -68. Do we have any like terms? Yes. So again, get rid of your fraction if possible. That way it's a lot simpler to solve. We get -25. And that would be 30, 45, 43 equals -68. Add the 25. So this one you're going to see works out really nicely, even though the numbers were messy in the beginning. When you subtract here, you get -43. And that gives us y equals -1. Once you find the one variable, go back to your blank spot where you solved for the other variable and replace your y with -1. X equals -5/4 plus 3/4 times -1. These have a common denominator, so we can add the numerators. -5 minus 3 is -8. And what's -8/4? -2. Good. So even though it's a really difficult problem, it worked out nicely in the end. Questions on that? This is not my favorite way to solve these. We're going to learn a way on Thursday called elimination, which I think is, I like it better than this. So some of you guys will love doing it substitution. Others will not like it. I'm not a big fan. So if you don't like this very much, hopefully on Thursday you'll like elimination. So there are 3 ways to solve this: graphing, substitution, and the third way to solve these we'll learn on Thursday. It's called elimination. I want you guys, for the rest of class, I want you to do numbers 9 and 11, please. You finished it? All right, well, the rest of you who have not done it, do numbers 9 and 11.
What can you ask for?
Party?
You can talk, you could,
Work out the homework through tomorrow.
yeah, you could work, well, we'll have class time to do it tomorrow. Yeah.
No.
You can have your device out, not your cell phone, but
If there is.
So fast.
I'm actually quite brilliant.
I got better for that. My cost.
Brand, you didn't even hear what I said.
I said I don't need to text.
that's fine. It's fine. It's keeping you quiet. It's fine.
Can I go to the restroom real quick?
Yes. I'll put the pen back up. Guys, I'm gonna put the answer up too, so when you're done, don't check it before, but when you're done, you can check your answer.
Oh, so you can see it. You're going down, right? Like nothing can jam it. So if you skirt.
Did you not think I actually see it. I didn't need it. I procured this hat on the spot. I stole from it. I still have it. It's red, but yeah, I wonder why. Yeah, me too. I wonder why.
So do you basically
Keyshawn, do you think maybe attention low, she's gonna get mad? Yes, the vibe. I don't know. Have 5. They have the when? Yeah, I know.
This one, it ended up being.
So that, oh, and be careful, because if those cancel out, but you have -5 equals 5, which is not true. So that would be no solution. Yeah.
That last one, towards it, you guys think.
Oh, God. Nothing but
It's like, you go like that. Keyshawn. Dude.
Yes, I'll get it for you in just a second. Let me just finish this.
My younger sister stole mine.
She's like, I need it for a math test. I'm like,
Where's yours? Can I wear your glasses tomorrow?
Setting on your phone, if
Sure.
you fail your pass keeps like too many times, it'll like capture your phone.
Do it like this.
Number you can like tell Steve.
Dog 67.
You're stupid. You're so stupid. Oh my god, this kid thinks he's 67. Bruh.